15 civilians have been killed in a US airstrike on Afghanistan in what was the biggest loss of civilian life, apparently, in one strike since President Obama bombed a Médecins Sans Frontières hospital, killing 45 innocent people in October last year. According to the Bureau of Investigative Journalism, nearly 30 people were gathered in a house to celebrate the return of a tribal elder from Mecca. Then, in what was claimed to be a counter-terrorism strike on ISIS-Daesh, 15 were killed outright and 13 were seriously injured. But could the new era of Trump bring an end to the mass drone assassination programs of President Obama, which have killed thousands upon thousands around the world? Ron Paul, former Texas Republican congressman and one-time presidential candidate, joins me now from Lake Jackson, Texas. Thanks so much for joining us, Ron. So how dangerous, as a quick reminder, would it have been for the world if we had a President Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think the world remains dangerous. Of course, we have a lot of evidence about what her policies have been, in the various countries. And her fiasco in Libya. She's a dedicated neoconservative that believes in adventurism and our presence around the world. So she would have been, quite dangerous to the world. And I think that was part of the debate in the campaign. I wished I could say that that's all past us because neoconservatives have an influence on both parties, and therefore we have to wait and see. We're very hopeful that maybe Trump will have a different foreign policy, but quite frankly, I think there's still a spirit of militarism in our country, and they're not about to give up on the empire, which is something we as libertarians would like to see. We think it's very dangerous and very costly for us to be spread around the world, but certainly the tone would be different. And if the question is, would Hillary have been a danger to the world? Yes, she would have been, but some of her friends are still around and will have an influence on the next administration.
Yeah, I want to go into more detail on that in a second. You did accuse her of lying to your son, Senator Rand Paul, who I understand has been re-elected, about U.S. weapons to ISIS-Daesh in Syria. Any chance of prosecuting her now for, as you say, lying to your son?
No, I don't think that'll happen. They may push some of these things in her foundation and a few other things, but no, she's the lying to Congress, I guess, has unfortunately been too well tolerated. But some of the things in the foundation may be pursued. But even now, as strongly as Trump was criticizing her, I mean, it's a hard way to start off with that being the first fight you have. So if anyway, and from his first conversation, about her, it was toned down, tremendously by him thanking her for her service to the country, which is quite a bit different than last week he wanted to put her in jail. So we have to wait and see. Quite frankly, I think that it will be in between someplace. I don't think she's going to go to jail. I think she'll still have legal problems to deal with. Yet I think that the problems that we face will remain very serious.
So no special prosecutor nominated by a Trump obviously appointed Attorney General?
A week or two ago, I think everybody say, yeah, that's what we're going to do. For some reason, I don't think it's absolutely necessary to have a special prosecutor. I think you can prosecute if we had the decent people in our Justice Department, and that's a big if. But I may be wrong on that, but my guess is that I think both sides are going to want to tone that down. I don't think it's in Trump's interest to really push real hard on that and say that my goal right now is to put Hillary behind bars. I don't think you're going to hear that anymore. And I think it'll go into and finally fade from the memory, and it'll linger. There will be some challenges, and there'll be some people who believed everything that Trump said about how hard he would be on her and put her in prison. But my guess is that that will fade from the scene, and they're going to deal with other problems because the other problems are going to come up. And I think they're going to be economic problems and spending problems because the new administration will probably outdo the Democrats in spending. So if economics is the main problem, I think that'll be the main issue. And I think that's why Trump won, is because people, their real standard of living is going down. Their salaries are going up and competing, and people are suffering, and the unemployment rate is much higher. And that's what they're going to be measuring by. And believe me, that's where the real problems are. It's almost like the dealing with Hillary is a distraction distraction from the real problems of the economy, the excesses, the debt, the monetization, and all these regulations that the Europeans have been fighting over, and Brexit is all about, was losing control of your own economy and having outsiders and international groups dealing with that. Those will be the big issue, and that's the reason I think they'll be in our face very soon, because I do not think that the economy all of a sudden is going to bounce right back. Hopefully so. It'd be nice if regulations went down and taxes went down and spending went down. But if you do all those things and you increase spending tremendously, right now I see signs that inflation, that is the price inflation, is starting to raise its ugly head. If you look at some of the commodity prices right now, I think there's an indication that the standard of living is going to go down because the cost of living is going to go up.
Albeit some economists are hoping there will be a few more signs of inflation. And what obstacles is Donald Trump going to face from the establishment of the NSA, CIA, when it comes, say, to foreign wars?
Well, I think he'll be very willing, because he talks tough on dealing with ISIS and terrorism and all. I don't think he'll be bashful on using the executive orders. Many of the neoconservatives that have been with Bush originally, he's been with Clinton this time, they're getting behind Trump right now. So you're going to see continued
interventionism, I thought. But he was against interventionism.
Pardon me?
Wasn't he against interventionism, I thought?
Who? Trump? Mm-hmm. Not really. Not really. Where is he going to bring the troops from? No, I think he's going to be tough. And I think he preached secrecy. Why is he doubling the amount of money he's going to spend in the military? So he's not going to walk away from those adventures overseas. But I do think he had a better tone, there's no doubt about it, than Clinton. And I think Clinton was a much greater danger in dealing with Russia and all these things. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, and I hope what you're alluding to is absolutely right. But I think Keynesianism on economics and interventionism in foreign policy and inflationism in the Federal Reserve, it's so ingrained. It's been with us for 70, 80 years, the welfare state, and you don't turn it off easily because there are too many special interests that benefit. So the momentum, even if you could say that his intentions are going to be very, very good, it's not going to happen. He has to contend with courts, he has to contend with the Congress, and then he has to contend with public relations. So he'll have a job, but it's so early to anticipate and say, well, this is going to happen and what he's going to do is not going to work, because if he gets off to the start and gets rid of some regulations and lowers our tax rate and helps us out on our insanity on how we're delivering medical care to the people, I mean, he could do that in 6 months. I think that would give a tremendous boost to the economy, and he did say the right things on some of those issues.
The IMF appeared to be intervening in your election by trying to criticize Trump in the run-up to it. Nothing that President Trump can do against, say, the head of the IMF and so on, let alone the head of the FBI?
Well, hopefully he can, but I've had so much hope over the last 40 or 50 years about hearing good speeches and saying how they're going to cut back and change policy. Even Obama, he didn't have too bad of an approach to foreign policy. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. George Bush in the year 2000 said he doesn't want to be the world policeman. We should not be involved in the internal affairs of other nations. We should be a humble nation. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. But look at what happens all the time. So I'm a skeptic, but I hope for the best, and we have to wait and see what happens.
Well, just finally, it's Remembrance Weekend here in Britain. Inequality, of course, rose in the United States under President Obama. At least, is there some hope for U.S. veterans, given what Trump said in the campaign? Finally, some sort of fair settlement with the veterans of all the foreign wars you've been opposing?
No, we need to, but what we need are lots less veterans. I mean, just think of what we've created in the last 25 years, particularly in 15 years, how many people we have crippled and put in, and loss of limbs, and psychiatric problems, and head injuries. Yes, we've spent trillions of dollars, probably in the last 15 years, $7-8 trillion. It's going to go on for a long time. The veterans are mistreated. When we were in Vietnam, it was Agent Orange, and then there was the Persian Gulf War syndrome that was a medical problem, and now we still have people suffering from these wars. And the veterans usually come up short, and no matter what they say. And Trump has spoken out clearly. He wants to help the veterans, but the money is skimpy. And the big question is, yes, let's save it by bringing our troops home, changing our foreign policy, cutting back in other places. Then maybe we can afford to take care of the veterans, but they do deserve it. But what the military people deserve is a better foreign policy where they're not exposed to no-win wars and just thrown in for political reasons into fighting the various countries in the Middle East, supporting one country versus the other. That's where the real problem is.
Ron Paul, thank you.